Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-host, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's up, coaches? It's the Coaching 101 podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain. I can't say my own name. Here with Kenny Simpson. I got your name down. I guess that's good. I would say we don't say our own names a lot, but I say mine twice a week. Recording for the second night in a row. It's been a good week. Spring break coming up. I'm sure all you guys that are listening are just about to come off. I don't know. Some states are weirdly timed, right? So maybe you're about to go on to spring break, but we're all right in this region. So happy breaking to you guys, wherever you are. I'm going to go ahead and say I had a great week, and I haven't even got there yet because I know I just need this break. This is the one that I need more than any kid, any other teacher. The break is necessary.
Oh, yeah. No, my daughter and I, if you're listening to this, we just got back from tramping around Europe a little bit for her senior spring break. So I don't know if I will not be rested, but hopefully we'll have had a good experience.
Yeah. Are you doing England, Germany, Spain?
Italy,
which
Italy and Greece. And so it's a school trip. So we just paid for her to go, and I'm going as just going as her dad, so kind of a fun little trip here. And, when they're seniors, you try to do all you can. So.
No, for sure. And that's really neat. And in today's climate, I think it's really neat that you're going because there are plenty of things out there in the world that, you could definitely just want to turn your kids loose and let them go with some group of people either. So
right.
I think it's really neat you get that opportunity.
We're blessed.
Have you been to that part of the world before?
I have. My wife and I went to Greece, and then Avery, who's my daughter, when she was young, we went to Italy. So she's actually been to Italy, but never been to the part we're going, and then to Greece.
Well, that's really neat. The military let me go to England and Germany, and then, of course, a bunch of those sandy countries over there. But those two were a lot of fun. I had a really good time in both countries. England I could live there. It was wonderful. I guess obviously the political and laws and all that stuff would make things different, but the food was delicious. A lot of people say England has bad food, but I absolutely enjoyed it.
It's okay. So. It's a lot like going to New York, very culturally diverse.
Yeah, a lot different. So what do you think about Saban's new outbursts on really NIL and it seemed like he kind of just said the kids are terrible nowadays.
Yeah, he's on a warpath. I mean, and you can tell. I'm not. Let me do two caveats on this, and I'd like to hear your thoughts because you may know more than I do about exactly what went down. But essentially, from what I understand, is he is obviously against the NIL and the effects that we didn't know it was going to have, which I think most people would agree that something needs to be done. It's like I don't think anybody out there says what's going on now is good, but I don't think that everything that's going on right now is bad either. Like I think it's ironic to hear a guy who profited heavily off of the backs of players. And I'm just going to go ahead and say what I don't know if a lot of people are saying. If we don't think Alabama wasn't already paying guys to go to Alabama, I think we got our head in the sand somewhere. So it's almost, it looks like sour grapes for a long time, you guys were the only ones who were really doing stuff like this. You had the monopoly of everything you wanted, and now that the field was leveled, you didn't really know how to compete. And so that's what it looks like to me from the outside. I'm bitter about Nick Saban because I'm a Dolphin fan, and I watched him epically fail in the NFL. And so while I'm not going to bash him because I think he's probably the best collegiate coach resume of all time, you can't argue that. You kind of look at this episode as almost like the pot calling the kettle black. I mean, like, you're now mad other people are making money. It looks to me like when it got tough, when it got to where you didn't have the dominant players, you didn't want to be part of the game anymore. That's what it looks like from the outside. Now, you may know more than I do about what he actually said.
No, his retirement comments about why him and Miss Terry finally just called it quits, and he really talked about the kids' attitudes and throwing their helmets after they lost the national championship game, and just not acting like having the standard that he was used to coaching. And then he tied a lot of that into because, in his recruiting, like you bring a kid in and the first question out of his mouth is, what are you going to pay me? Like, what am I going to get?
Right.
To where it used to be. And I'm, once again, what was going on, behind closed doors and money is completely separate. But there's definitely been, whether that was the case or not, there's a change in the attitude of, of athletes overall. I mean, if that was happening behind closed doors, I feel like, the transfer portal opened up the chaos just as much as the money did. So, so him just stating, hey, it's time to go because these kids have lost their minds on what it means to be here. That, I concur with that. Like we see that in the classrooms, right? We see the apathies. We see the I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. I don't care. And there's no money on the line here. It's literally a free education. So, yeah, I can kind of understand that side with NIL and in total. Today he endorsed I say today, and it's going to be a week or two before this comes out, but the revenue sharing, which, maybe I guess that's one good thing about putting him on that panel they put him on for NIL at Congress, because he does have an understanding of what kids need or want.
Right.
And if it is revenue sharing where the school gets to be the people paying instead of all the chaos around NIL right now, then maybe that is the way out of all this. But
I understand the frustration from him and a lot of college football fans. It's ruining the game. It really is making it different than it used to be, to the point where you kind of wonder, when is it just going to become like a minor league? Like, when are we going to go from high school to maybe like a minor league or club system? Because let's be honest, nobody going to Alabama right now is going there for the education. Like, if you're going to be able to play at that level of football, it's good that you can get an education, but I don't know if we necessarily need to tie those two things together. And so it's almost like certain schools need to just kind of almost become their own professional-ish type league. And so it's a mess, though. I'm not a lot of my friends are big college football fans, and, it's not what it used to. I've always been more of a pro fan, where a lot of my friends are college fans, but it's just kind of different. And so you understand the frustration from Nick Saban, and obviously he carries a big voice. I found it, I don't know, it's hard to swallow from him.
Yeah. When, I can tell you NIL, my feelings on it real quick, and then I will move on, and we won't waste this whole episode on college football. But my biggest issue, I don't care if the kids are getting paid. I don't care if people are coming out of pocket to pay them. What's really gotten under my skin is now that each school's opened up their own NIL donation pot, and it's like, I'm not a good enough fan anymore if I don't donate 10% of my income to the local college NIL fund to help my team win. Well, we're going to lose championships if you don't give us some of your money. Like, I truly don't care that much. I am a huge OU fan. There are a lot of fans on social media right now that are screaming, you better give to the Crimson and Cream NIL fund because otherwise we're going to fall behind. Well, it's not my job to pay the kids. It's not my job to fund the college that's also taking $40,000 a semester to go there to get a piece of paper. It's not my job to keep them afloat so that they can have a good team. So it's just, that's where it's gotten me a little sour on NIL. I'll never quit being a Sooners fan.
Right.
But the fans, the other fans that are now, I don't even know what the trumpeters of NIL are the ones that really just drive me nuts. So if you're a guy like me and you just want to be a fan of your college football team, you absolutely can do that without judgment or needing to donate your hard-earned money for any of that. That's ludicrous. The fans became the source of income instead of the schools, and that changed it. So anyway, off NIL. Tonight we're talking a little bit of screen game and kind of some different types of screens that you can run. It's something we haven't covered on the podcast before. And as we're, kind of progressing here into season 3, already our 5th episode in. So we're just, rubber to the road, just making tracks here. So it's pretty neat. You guys are listening. Thank you so much for sticking around and being part of our download numbers and listening to us. Keep reaching out. emailing us. And if you want to come on the show or whatever, you got an idea for an episode, by all means, let us have them. But Kenny, before we get started talking here, would you like to tell us how to keep football simple for our staff and for our players? What's up, coaches? I want to talk to you for just a few moments about your program. The longer I'm in this profession, the more I understand that efficiency is truly the name of the game. You're talking offense, defense, doesn't matter, right? Eventually, you're going to come down to checking out your efficiency. So I have to ask you, are you doing everything in your program the most efficient way, right? Are you fundraising the most efficient way? Are you representing your players and your program to the public in the best way? Are you planning to build the facilities the most efficient way? If you answered no to any of those, or really even if you answered yes to all of them, and you haven't contacted Mark Bridges at Ace Sports, you're missing a key step. So look, Mark and his team, they are the go-to group for video board and scoreboard installations for your school. They're not just football either. Mark can help you mock up your newest video board for your that new stadium, or maybe even your old stadium, right? That's where Mark and the guys come in. And we're not just buying a flashy thing, right? Yes, it's nice. It's pretty neat to have that big scoreboard, that big video board, but you're also, you're investing back into that program. You're investing into that newest fundraiser. Sure, you can keep selling your discount cards, your beef jerky, hosting pie auctions, whatever it is that you like to do. But let's just be honest with ourselves, guys. We're not making enough money for those big ticket items. For the big ticket items like turf, an indoor facility, that's where you need a big ticket item fundraiser. That's what Ace Sports is offering you today. Guys, I've talked to Mark several times now, all right? And it always comes down to big school, small school. Right? Well, of course, the big schools can afford that new video board, but the small schools really can't. It's just not true anymore, man. Your school isn't too small, and I promise. Okay, 1A, 2A schools, it doesn't matter. Mark and the guys, they're helping them out. Contact Mark today at mark.bridges@acesports.com and let him come give you a quote. Let him show you and your administration the plan. Now, really, it's the cheat code, right? Let him show you the cheat code that is fundraising with Ace Sports video boards. Tell him Daniel sent you. This episode is brought to you by Athletic Speed and Movement. At athleticspeedmovement.com, we've taken Del Basquet's 45 years of speed and movement training and put it all in one place just for you. You can get the same training that NFL players have been getting for years, collegiate players have been getting for years, and now high schools across the nation are paying thousands of dollars to bring Dell in to install his system, but we've got it online for you. It's time to help your team become faster, not just in the 40, not just their sprint speed, but between the tackles and their cuts while they're chasing down the quarterback. It's time for you to help them become faster everywhere. Jump over to athleticspeedmovement.com. There's an orange button there. Just click it. It says, get the keys to playing faster. You'll get the 3 core movement video from Dell. He's explaining the science behind it, all for just the price of your email. Check it out, athleticspeedmovement.com.
Coach, do you want to communicate like a pro and experience the best sideline communication system on the market? Then let me introduce you to Procom headsets. Procom is the most clear, durable, and reliable system on the market. From our noise-canceling technology to our coach-to-player communications featuring our patented loudmouth, Procom defeats the competition. Thousands of coaches have made the switch because they have seen, heard, and felt the difference. Let me show you how Procom headsets will make your game day communications a seamless and efficient process. Go to procomwelchman.com and reach out to me. That's PROCOMWELCHMAN.com.
Coaching 101 podcast is sponsored by Findaway Productions. Findaway Productions also sponsors fbcoachsimpson.com for all your coaching needs, with over 30 coaching materials, books, as well as 50 PowerPoints and videos and smaller materials and the free magazine headsets. Findaway Productions also sponsors offensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things offense, and defensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things defense.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Each time now, I just want to make sure we're pointing out that, those guys at Ace Sports and at Procom, they have your best interest in mind. Reach out to them. You cannot say enough about almost absolutely free fundraising for your program. Shoot Kenny an email and talked about it, right? I mean, it's cheat code. Absolutely a cheat code. And in a world where we want everything easy and just Google it, just Google Ace Sports and go talk to Mark. So, sweet. So question number 1 here, what types of screens are there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can kind of slice this up. And I'll start off by saying, every year when we reevaluate our offense, and we're a gun tease, a lot of guys that are listening to this kind of know what we run, but which means we do have an element of spread in our offense. We're in the shotgun. We have 2 or 3 receivers at a time, maybe 4, depending on the set and what we're looking at. So we have that element in it. And so if you're one of those guys that you have that, you're in the shotgun, or you're going to have at least 2 receivers, the screen game has got to become almost an extension of your run game. It's kind of I look at kind of in different groupings as we're installing. You have your run game, then you have like play action pass off of the run game, and then a lot of times you'll have that extension, kind of a lot of people call it a gift, like a screen off of that. And so that's one level of screens, is almost like a divorced concept. I call it divorce concept. Like, you were going to have a run play, but over here, these guys are running a bubble screen, or these guys are running a fast screen, or these guys are, maybe it's just a one receiver, just throw the hot route to them. And so it could be whatever that looks like. But I kind of consider that to be a lot of times the first screen that we install, and because that marries really well with just your general grip it and rip it. You're just grabbing the ball, you're throwing it out there, but it's a low install, because the only guy blocking for the screen are the other receivers out there. Like, you're not pulling linemen out there. No one's going out there. It's just the quarterback decides that looks better than the run. So that's kind of the first level of screen we would do. Really, the only guys that are blocking are the receivers, when the line is blocking a run play. So that's kind of, to me, level one in screens is that one. Then the next level would be like we'd call like a missile screen, or it could be a fast screen, whatever you want to call it in your offense. But now you're going to involve linemen, or you're going to involve backfield players. So this is a design play. There's no option. We're going to grab the ball, and we're going to throw the screen out there, and the linemen on the play side are going to run out there and try to handle whatever's showing up. Or maybe it's a backfield player or a tight end or an H-back or whatever. But we're going to involve more guys kind of into that screen. And it's not going to be an option. We're throwing the screen no matter what. Okay, so that's screen option number 2 for me, is that one. Then as you kind of work down from there, we have like maybe part of a triple option look, where I'm make a quarterback making a handoff or a pull read, and when I pull it, I'm running. But if I don't like what I'm seeing, I might throw a bubble screen or a fast screen out there. Or it could be a same side, like maybe it's like a quarterback designed QB sweep, but on the same side you're running a bubble or a fast screen and you're reading a defender. So that's really kind of an RPO, but it marries kind of well with the screen world. Is a little bit different because you're not going to block a certain guy. So it does take a little bit of time with your receivers to understand, hey, on this one, we're reading this guy, don't block him. So it's kind of its own next element. So step 1, divorce concept. Step 2, fast screen, missile screen, whatever. Step 3, kind of the pitch part of the option. And then I think step 4 are those slow developing screens. And you might even put those in 2 categories. You might have like a tunnel screen, which is kind of a let the defense run and throw it to a receiver, or it could be to a back. He pretends to pass protect and then leaks out, and you throw it to him. But I would categorize both of those under the umbrella of a slow screen. Like, that's going to be, we're going to show pass, invite you upfield, and then we're going to throw a screen after you've rushed. So kind of a slower developing screen. And you can, as you get into that world, you can pair a lot of these things up. So a lot of times we'll have a pass concept on one side and a slow screen if we don't like the pass concept. So again, I don't want to just completely go crazy on all the different rabbit trails, but that's kind of how we would categorize them. You got divorce concepts, fast screens, then you have like RPO-ish, the option pitch type stuff. Then you have slow developing screens, and that's kind of your general broad categories.
You talk about all the rabbit trails, and you definitely could start tying a lot of things. Me and Bo Collins, who's been on the show before, and he's a good friend of mine now, my old head coach. We've been talking a lot lately about his taking rocket toss and then basically running an RPO screen out of it, right? We're just going to read that corner and throw a go route or just keep running with it. So yeah, you can start tying a lot of things into screens, which I think is what makes them so universal. Later we're going to talk about why we need them and how we're going to teach them. Those running back, those leak out screens, dude, those are vicious in today's world, because it seems like every defense now, people are just trying to be so aggressive, right? We're big into blitz paths and pressure paths and how we're going to really get after the offense. And then there he goes. So It's good. Whenever we were talking about starting this episode, I really didn't even think about, like now screens and tunnels and
Right.
bubble screens. But absolutely, those have to be included, right? It's just a little different way of doing it. So that's great breakdown of those. That's a great way to kind of conceptualize them, and that way you don't get too many of the same kind. That's what you're always worried about. Too many plays that hit a gap. When you don't want too many of the exact same type of screen, because you're trying to take advantage of a different thing on the defense, right? Sometimes it's just numbers, and sometimes it's aggression, and so I think it's really good to have them separated so you can get one or two of each.
And you used to could watch the Patriots when they had Tom Brady. He was an expert at just those slow screens, just kind of knowing when to call them, how to call them. Now it's kind of evolved to where watch the Kansas City Chiefs and watch the way they run multiple types of screens. They did it this year, I think, to hide the fact that the receivers weren't great, and their offensive line was kind of okay. But they do a great job of screens to the running back and screens to the receiver and types of screens. So if you really want to watch an NFL team that shows off a lot of that, I think the Chiefs would be a really good kind of a case study kind of team. Or you could go back and watch old Patriot film. And when they used to, I can't, and then, before him, you even had Peyton Manning. I thought he was the expert of recognizing a coverage because you really want to run screen against man. And I think you
Right.
kind of want to run those tunnel screens, slow screens against man, and you want to run those fast screen, bubble screens against zone. And so he would, having a quarterback that could recognize it. Obviously, if you have Peyton Manning, do whatever you want to. But the idea of how he knew how to call the plays. So those are, if you're listening to this episode and you want to go watch some teams that do it really well, that's who I'd kind of lean to.
I mean, you got to look at, you talk about Kansas City Chiefs, and I mean, they've leaned on it, especially the last 2 years. The average amount of time or average distance that Patrick Mahomes' touchdown passes travel through the air the last 2 years are 4.5 and 3.9 yards respectively. So when he throws touchdowns, they're not even going 5 yards deep, which is the no cover zone in high school, right? Like, we don't even cover at 5 yards. Everything he hits there is going for touchdowns.
Yeah, he's
so
big screen, crossing game, tunnel screen. I mean, that's really what the Chiefs they had to because of the personnel.
Yeah. So, just neat to see that it can be, I mean, they won the Super Bowl, 2 of them in a row, actually. So, and that's with his, lowest distance thrown in the air total. So, so why is it important to throw these screens, Coach?
Well, there's a couple reasons. One, the first one, the obvious one, is it's generally easier to block for them. Like, usually you're having to block 1 or 2 or maybe 3 players, depending on the type of screen you're running. So, like, if you throw a fast screen out there, basically it's your athlete versus their athlete, and you only have to block 1 guy. And when you run the ball, at least 5, because the linemen, at least 5 guys have to do their job successfully for the play to have a chance. When you throw a screen, now only 1 or 2 guys has to do their job successfully. Or on the offensive line, you are maybe influencing people. So the job is easier. You're allowing them to use their own technique to run upfield, and then you're getting out to where now you only have to block 2 linebackers. So
Right.
the amount of people you have to successfully block is way lower in the screen game than it is in the run game. So that's, to me, reason number 1. Reason number 2 is it's an easy way to get the ball to athletes. Generally, depending on how your offense is structured, you're going to have 2 or 3 different guys that you're just trying to get into space. I think that's a big key for most coaches is how can I get my best athlete with the ball in his hands with room to make a play, like, where he's got room to do something. I don't want a low percentage deep ball, or maybe it's harder to throw a certain route, but we ought to be able to catch screens. Those are high percentage plays. We should be able to dial it up to our best kid. And then we should have, 5 to 6 yards worth of green in front of him where he can go make a play. And that would be on any of those screens we talked about. So that's reason number 2. And then I think the big one is you're forcing the defense to kind of do 2 things. 1, you're forcing them to slow down their pass rush. So if you're running those tunnel screen, slow screen, whatever, you're making them slow down coming after the quarterback. The other one is you're making them defend the full width of the field. We want to make you defend the entire width of the field. If you don't feel the threat of a screen or quick game coming out, those what I call conflict guys, so outside linebackers, safeties, they're going to keep creeping tighter and tighter and tighter to the box. So you got to make them go out there and honor it. Like, you got to throw a couple out there so they know, man, if I get too close to the box, they have a fast kid out here and they are willing to throw him the ball. And so even just throwing one or two screens ought to kind of ease the box, because you're making the defense stretch out. And then if you hit them on a slow screen or two, you're going to make them slow down. Those third down blitz packages they look foolish if you throw a screen right in the middle of it. And so you kind of slow down those guys that want to just get after you. And so it gives you some answers to some of the things the defenses are trying to do.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned my point a while ago with talking Kansas City Chiefs, and you're trying to make up for not having those star athletes at wide receiver anymore. Which, I mean, the guys they have obviously are phenomenal athletes, but respectively, they definitely miss like Tyreek Hill just taking the top off of things. And then at our level, you've got a quarterback to worry about too. And you're doing amazing things, and the offense you allow people to purchase and get installed. You can run the ball a lot with some very short passes, and I think that helps. I mean, I think I said last episode, like, if I was an NFL guy, what would I do? I would fund my quarterback first. Well, we don't all have that, kid, nor do we have that option, right? Some of you got NIL. Like Oklahoma, I guess, technically does, but we ain't out there using it. And so if I need to shorten those throwing, shorten the passes, shorten the routes, the screen game do that. And then, you can lean right. I think of it just the same way you said you loosen up the box with the screen. Hopefully you can get the running game going if you don't have a stud quarterback to open that screen game back up. So make them squeeze down and then just, try to break one out there. But we all, I think, would love to have a quarterback who could go out and throw a full air raid concept playbook. We just don't have that. And so when your guys' limit is 20 yards with any kind of accuracy, and that's right over the middle. That's not trying to get it out to a hash or the numbers. I think those shorter routes and just winging it out there with a kid that can move around and make the pass good, right? He's not got a defender stuck to him yet. So he can get low or high or work to or from the line of scrimmage to make a catch and then get upfield, like you said.
Yeah, and it's not just the physical part is true too. I mean, you're 100% right, Daniel. I mean, like that's an easier throw, but also the mental part. Like, you have a play now where your quarterback he can't check out. I don't mean to make it sound that way, but he can mentally kind of take a break. Like, he knows, I'm going to catch the ball and I'm throwing the ball to this guy. Like, there's those young quarterbacks, you need 5 or 6 of those throws a game where I know they're supposed to make a read. I know you work with them all summer to make the read, but man, it's nice when they know I just got to catch it and throw it to him. And so there's something about the mental part of it too, that you can take that kind of relief off of them, make an easy pass, and now we can get him going a little bit.
That's not even an alien concept. I mean, they say that in the NFL all the time, right? You listen to a game, like, they just need to get him some easy completions,
Easy balls,
get his confidence back up, right? And so it's why wouldn't you do that for a 14 to 18-year-old that's out there for maybe the first time in his whole life not getting paid millions? So no, absolutely, those are all great points, Coach. So kind of last part here, how do you teach screens?
Yeah, you got to figure out the blocking. So again, those are all different types of screens I gave you. So we'll start off with like perimeter type screens. So that could be bubble screen, fast screen, whatever. Just catch it and get it out there. We always teach what we call MDT, or most dangerous threat. And so what we'll teach a lot of times is, let's say there's 2 receivers, we assume that the corner is the number one threat, because we're always trying to get the ball out to the edge on the screen. We're trying to get the ball out to the numbers. So we're going to attack the corner where we think he would go the most dangerously. So that would mean if we snap the ball and the corner immediately sprinted forward, that's our aiming point. We're assuming that's the worst case scenario we could get. So that's where we're going to take our footwork to go block. Whether that's a fast screen, and I'm talking about the slot who's blocking, or that's a bubble, I'm talking about the wide receiver who's blocking that. we're going to assume that corner is coming right now, like a hard press cover 2 or man or whatever. If he doesn't, so now we go up to him like we're expecting him to come, and he leaves, because you could see roll cover 3, you could see quarters, you could see, there's a lot of things you could see where that corner is not going to be hard. He's going to bail. If that happens, we need to whip our head around to find who's got the flats. Is that a roll down safety who's coming? I got to go get him. Is that an outside linebacker who's kind of buzzing out there? So that's the way we work. We call it most dangerous threat. We assume it's the corner. If it's not the corner, then we're going to work to the next guy. And that allows you to kind of work aiming points with your kids. There's a lot of things you could talk about on blocking. I do think there's a ton of different drills you can get in the screen game. We're really big on kind of like basketball screen, essentially. We want to be wide set. We want to push vertically as far as they'll let us. And when they start moving forward, we want to settle. And then we're going to take him wherever he wants to go and let our athletes be athletes. So that means we want to eliminate holding calls by not trying to, hey, we have to reach him or we have to kick him or whatever. We just want to get in his way. And then we want to let our athlete be an athlete. So that's the first type of screen. The second types of screens would be like tunnel or slow screens. If we're going to run those, a lot of times we'll designate a player or an area depending on the defense. So if we're throwing like maybe a tunnel or a leak out screen, they're both going to kind of hit in the same place. Our tackle is taught, or we may do it with our guard depending on the year. But whichever player is out there first, he's handling the force player. He's looking to kick out whatever shows up. So that might be an outside linebacker, or that could be a roll-up safety, or it could be a corner, depending on what set you're in. The number 2 guy who's coming out there has play side inside linebacker. And so if we have 3, then he would have the backside, just depending on how many guys you're wanting to leak out there into space. But that guy kind of knows now, I'm coming out there to kick. I'm coming out there to kick out a guy. The other 2 have got to settle. And again, they're going to work the same type of blocks the receivers would work. Run vertically. When we can't run anymore, we want to try to settle and just get in his way and make that guy choose. So you got to kind of get the blocking part first. Then you got to work with the guy who's catching the ball, because we don't want to throw a screen out there and this guy dances and runs wherever. So we always tell our guy, if you catch a screen, we want you to get vertical 3 to 5 yards. So you need to catch it and get straight up field 3 to 5 yards before you start, playing backyard football. We're okay with you doing that. Like, we're very okay with you making guys miss. But you can't dance, because especially early in their careers, those kids aren't used to the pursuit level of the defense they're going to see. They've been playing junior high football, or they've been playing whatever, or they catch and they do whatever they want to do, and no one's going to be able to tackle them. Well, now you get up to the high school level, and you get 1 or 2 moves, and you're about to get ear-holed. And so get vertical 3 to 5 yards, and then if you want to dance, I'm okay with that at that point. And so we want to make sure we rep that a ton with our receivers. And part of that is catch and tuck, because that's where you're going to see fumbles happen. Is that kid's excited to get the football, he catches the ball, he's running, it's not fully tucked away, and here comes the ball. Because on a screen, we would hope we don't get hit right away, but those are receivers blocking, and every now and then they miss. So you need to kind of be prepared, catch and tuck, and then get vertical, and then dance. And that would be on really any kind of screen. And then we want to make them think of this. This is an extended run game, like for our quarterbacks especially. So not really the receivers. I don't really get on receivers about catching and dropping. I found that you just kind of work on don't throw it to the ones that don't catch it, and so that's kind of our mindset. But we're not gonna hammer a kid, because no kid said, you know what, coach, I'm gonna drop this ball. Like, nobody said that. So we try not to really get into that world. But we talked a lot about our quarterbacks of, these have got to be accurate, catchable footballs. So it's one of the phrases I use for my quarterbacks all the time is know your audience. Like, there are certain things you can say, and there are certain things you wouldn't want to say if certain people were there, if that makes sense. There are certain things you can do, and there are certain things you wouldn't want to do if certain people were there. You don't want to throw a 95-mile-per-hour fastball to an H-back. Like, that's your fault that he dropped that. Or if you throw one as hard as you can to a ninth grader and he drops it, that's your fault because you threw a ball he couldn't catch. Know your audience. Give him a ball he can catch. And then as your quarterbacks grow, we start to shrink their target. I got this on The Patriot, one of my favorite movies, when he's up there shooting all the different red coats. It says, aim small, miss small. So we want to really coach, throw the ball to the upfield shoulder of the bubble screen, throw the ball to the upfield shoulder of the fast screen. So if we miss and we hit him in the chest, not a big deal. But we don't want to just tell him, hey, hit the target. Like, we want to give you, hey, your target is going to be the upfield shoulder, and then our receivers, if they're doing their job, ought to end up at X point on the field. So you want to kind of rep that stuff because you don't want to throw a screen and it be dropped, because then you're not going to call a screen because nobody likes 2nd and 10 when you drop the screen. So our kids have got to understand we want to throw screens. We want to throw as many screens as we can possibly throw, but it's got to be one of those things we're catching it 99% of the time. We're blocking to get 3 to 5 yards every time. If that's the case, we'll throw a bunch of screens. If some of that's not working, maybe we're not paying attention to our footwork at quarterback and we're not being real accurate. Maybe at receivers, we're not blocking. We're not getting 3 to 5 yards. Whatever it is, we're going to have to cut that out. So I think you have to really harp on them that this needs to be another run for our offense. We need to be so good at this that it's just easy for us.
When I started teaching defense and how to tackle, I started using, if you can step on their toes, you can tackle them. Talking about close the space, because we got guys that either overshot, and we always see that, over pursuit, or they get in like a crab stance, like they're playing flag football and they're 5 yards from the dude and he's putting a move on them and they've already spread their base out, right? And they run right by them. And so that's something I started using. And when I started coaching wide receivers, I did the same thing for blocking screens. If you can step on their toes, you can block them, right? I've since seen another way, and I'm not sure which is better. But since I've been introduced to, like you said, something pretty similar, but almost like a basketball screen. Like, you're running to a point, and then you're going to get ready to block, and then kind of let the defense go. So you don't get, what do you see a lot of times? Wide receivers, they over pursue or block just like they would a tackle if they were a corner, right? They're going to run out there to a guy who is looking through them. He's looking at the ball carrier, and he's going to put one juke move on them, and then they swing in a whiff. And so I've kind of gotten away from that. I still want them to be aggressive and go get that kid, but we don't have to like close the gap. Like, make him come to you too. And then like what you said, just take him where he wants to go. Like, once he gets to you, worst case scenario, he blows you up.
Right.
And now he's used all of his momentum and all of his, kinetic energy. He's put it into you. And so he's at a standstill, and we're going to put a move on him and get by him anyway.
We used to do, we just basically put a cone or something there. And so that receiver just knew, as long as that guy doesn't touch the cone, you win. So like, I can take him in, I can take him out, he can run through me. As long as I don't let him get to the cone, I win. And so that really helped our kids.
And then, kind of the last coaching point there was just own the edge or own the sideline, however you want to, put that to your kids. But you said it earlier, Kenny, like bubble screens, fast screen. We want to get to the numbers. We want to get outside, and we want to go. And on defense, what do we teach our corners? You have to own the sideline, right? I want you outside, force it back in, and they never do. God, they never do. Ever. Our
corners,
they come in and try to play a bubble on his inside hip.
But they'll run past it. Like, our corners will come up so hard, they'll overrun it, and the guy just cuts inside, So.
Vertical seams, right? It's an extension of the run game. All the same rules fit, right? Your force has got to be there. You're just passing off that responsibility. So, that's something that I picked up this year big time, was just own that sideline. Let your blockers and your ball carrier know, like, we're going there, and we're all going there together. We're going to convoy out there, and there's no one going to get in our way. And when that one corner does show up, fine, push him to the sideline and let's go, right? Like, take a step back inside and let's get going. But I struggled last year as a defensive coordinator because Bixby put a whipping on me every time we faced him. It seemed like stinking Cameron was on here the other day, right? He came on the show and talked to us a little about his offensive stuff, but they are notorious for throwing bubble screens, and my mentality was, if it's to the trips, I've got you 4 over 3, and you want to start with the ball 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Like, more power to you, dude. Let's go. Let's play football. But then I realized that it's the corner, right? The same reason duo works. The same reason all these get to the edge and make a corner tackle. You isolate that corner, and the kid, he's not doing it. So they quickly taught me a new way to think about even defending the screens. Sometimes numbers don't win when that kid's got that 5 yards.
Again, my best athlete versus your worst tackler.
Yeah, not always the best for the old defensive guys. So, offensive guys, keep running them. I mean, that's, never give up on a good play, and even if they do drop it or they do you mess it up a time or two, it's going to be there. They're notorious for. It seems like you talked about earlier, that third down and that blitz package is coming. It's 3rd and 11. They've done really great twice, and then here's that slow screen to a running back, and there's nobody for 15 yards or whatever. So. It's a great one. Well, Coach, we'll kind of push on through a little bit quicker episode tonight. Let's get into our what not to do as a coach. What is our lesson for tonight?
Yeah. So, to me, the lesson for tonight is, as an offensive team, you've got to force the defense to defend horizontally. And I think for tonight, we talked about screens. Maybe you're an under center flex bone team, and that's fine. You probably didn't make it this far if you were in this episode. But if you were, you got to make them defend the pitch. You got to make them defend every square inch of that grass. And so an easy way to do that is an extension of the run game, which is the screen game like we talked about tonight, because I've got to make a defense defend the full width of the field. There's a lot of ways you can do that. Screen game is one. Outside run is another one. Of course, you could talk about inside run, C-gap. You need to have something that can attack any part of the defense. I'm just talking horizontally. Obviously, you want to have vertical threats too, but it starts off with, how can I make them defend every gap in the run game? How can I make them defend the full width of the field on both sides? Then how can I make them have to honor, if I put a kid out in space, they feel like they have to go honor him. And I think that's a huge reflection of if you're willing to take the screens or not. Because I've seen multiple games, we just haven't had the quarterback that could throw it. So even though I did a great job on a whiteboard putting trips out there, they put 1.5 guys out there because they knew we couldn't throw it out there. And so I think a big part of this episode is talking about trying to get to the point where you can at least force them to go out there and defend that, however that needs to look. And again, it doesn't have to be screens. It could be outside runs to a bunch trips look. But you need to make a defense defend the full width, because once they do, you're going to start recognizing there's holes. Once they have to defend the whole width of the field, there are holes, and then that's when you call your plays. But if they're not having to go out and defend every part of it, it's easy to put 9 guys in the box, and there's nowhere to go. So you've got to make them kind of get out there and defend that stuff.
Excellent. Appreciate that, Coach. One last time, I want to make sure you guys are running over and seeing, shoot an email out to Zach Welchman at procomwelchman.com. The guy's got it going on with the Procom headsets. If you need anything, they got that new loudmouth thing, so you can be in the box and talk to a kid, and your OC or DC, or they don't have to take their headset off and give it to a player, right? They just go talk to the little loudmouth. So if you're needing something like that, you're needing a way. I got to ask the question this week, like, where do you want to coach from the box or the field? Well, we all want to coach from the field, but we also know there's not a whole bunch of educated eyes running around that can be in the box and let us know what's going on. So sometimes it truly is the best place to be. Maybe that loudmouth is the piece that can give you back that connection to the kids if you're just a guy that needs to yell at kids or whatever. So reach out to Zach Welchman at procomwelchman.com. Coach, I know you talked about some academies that opened up, or there was a book.
Yeah, we got a bunch of things going on. Yeah, we got the hats out. The coach's cap is out. So if you're interested in getting making sure you take care of your skin. So whether you buy my hat or not, I would recommend you get a boonie hat or some kind of big hat. But ours has the whistle attached. It's coachescap.com. So you get a Fox 40 whistle and a hat for less than you're probably paying for one or the other. And then we also have the academies, the Head Coach Academy. We have Offensive Coordinator Academy, Defensive Coordinator Academy. Then we just put out our Gun T Quarterback Manual. So if you want a one-stop shop to get all our RPOs, all our pass reads, all our protections, and all our quarterback drills in one place, that's going to be the place to go. That's going to be for sale over at fbcoachsimpson.com.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Social media, you can find me on Twitter /X at Coach Chambo OK. You can email me at any time at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. LAIN on Chamberlain if you haven't seen it on Twitter or something. But yeah, email me anything. I like talking ball. I like answering questions. I like going over scheme. And Coach, help me if you need idea for graphics or whatever, man. You just hit me up. I like talking anything football. Coach, where can we find you on social media, sir?
All things FB Coach Simpson. So at FB Coach Simpson on Twitter. FBCoachSimpson.com is my website. FBCoachSimpson@gmail is my email. And then, of course, all the Facebook groups. If you're in Facebook, we've got groups for anything football. Just search them. I'm sure you'll find them.
Absolutely. Awesome. The podcast is on Twitter /X at Coaching101pod. Of course, you can find us on Spotify. Obviously, you're listening to this, you found it somewhere. Apple Podcast. If you're there, leave us a review, guys. And I know that we're getting to our third season here. It's time for us to start looking at things we might need to change to be better, to reach a broader audience. Share us with your friends. If you got coaching buddies that maybe they just need to hear, us talk about whatever the topic is that week. Maybe you're just wanting to educate a new coach. I think that's a great place where podcasts can kind of fill that void, and it's all free. So share us, give us a review, 4 or 5 stars, whatever you think we're worth. If it's worse than that, maybe just reach out and let us know why. That one bad review can go a long way. It's hard to bounce back from those. We want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We hope you'll join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.